Hey, everybody, this is Patty. Welcome to the Witching Hour. Yep, that hour of the day when the veil is thin and magic happens. I have some very special magic for you today. I'm having her on for the second time, which means a lot. She is an author. She is a witch. She is a crazy cat lady, the one and only Deborah Blake. Welcome back, Deborah.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be back with you.
This is awesome. I know you have a lot going on. You have stuff coming out in just a few weeks next month. But let's talk about this book that just came out recently because it is so beautiful. Llewellyn's Little Book of Witchcraft.
Yeah, I love this book. It's part of a series. They have a whole series of Llewellyn's Little Book of, and there's the Little Book of the Moon. There's a little book of herbs, little book of tarot. And I was talking to Alicia, my Llewellyn editor at one point, and I said, I'd really like to write one of those books. Can you tell me what hasn't been done yet? And she said, nobody's done the Little Book of Witchcraft. And I said, dibs, because who better to write the Little Book of Witchcraft than me, really?
I just recently got this. It is beautiful. Again, because it's just so well done, the binding and the pages. So tell us
First of all,
about
I love the
this.
fact that it's a hardcover and it's a cute little hardcover. I love cute. I keep telling everybody this is the perfect gift to give to your little witchy friends or people who are interested. So basically, it's exactly what it says. It's the Little Book of Witchcraft. It covers a lot of the most basic parts of witchcraft. It's a good introduction, although it's also useful for people who've been doing it for a while, but it's got commonly used terms and talks about the Sabbats and the lunar cycle and special occasions and witchy crafts, because who doesn't like to do a nice little witchy craft? One of the things that I love about this particular series of books is that at the very beginning, there's a list of all the activities in the book. And then there's a list of all the spells in the book and a list of tips, because I always have tips. And that way it's easy for people to navigate the book and say, "All right, I'm in the mood for this spell today, or I need to find an interesting activity or whatever." So it's easy to use.
And it's beautiful. It's simple. Charm bags and magic, a dedication, initiations. You get I love simple and I love easy explanations. Somebody gives me a book that's too big, the book of I look at it and go, "This is really nice," and I set it down. This you could use certainly for reference because music, paper, jumping in, cooking with magic, growing plants, all these things that we do. What is an eclectic witch? What is an ordinarian witch? What is a green witch? So much of this stuff, so many what new people or even some people who've never thought about it just don't have an easy explanation, any
I
at all.
tend to be a very practical witch. I don't do the big fancy, esoteric, complicated rituals every once in a while. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. I think they're great. And I love to every once in a while go to one that somebody else has done. I don't have that much time and energy in my day, or my week or my month. So I try and make witchcraft simple and accessible and something that people can, pick this up and say, oh, this activity will only take 10 minutes. I can find 10 minutes. I'll lock my husband out of the house. It'll be fine. Yeah. Or I can distract the cats with treats long enough to actually get something done.
And you can tell how much I use it because look at I've got all these little things in it, which is so goofy. And I know this has been out a while, but there's a lot of cat people in my listeners and watchers. You actually have a book on magic. It's a
Yeah,
little
and
book
it's
too.
interesting. It's not part of the series. It just happened to be a little book of cat magic. But I will confess, you're not supposed to have favorites among your books any more than you have favorites among your children. But I love that book, obviously, in part because I love cats, but also because that was the last book that my cat Magick, who was my familiar, actually helped me work on before she passed. And so it's got a really special place in my heart. And I love the cover. The cover is so pretty. It's just, and I get a lot of messages from people about that book because there is in that book a spell for helping to let go of a beloved cat. And people have used it and it's really helped them, which makes me feel really good because that's why I write. I write to help share knowledge. I help to give people the tools that they need to learn witchcraft or practice witchcraft in ways that work for them. And so, yeah, that book definitely has a special place in my heart.
Yeah, me too, but you have more. You have what do you have coming
Okay,
out in March
so
in just a
in
few
March,
days?
I have from Llewellyn, I have the Eclectic Witches Book of Shadows Companion. A couple of years ago, this came out, which is the Eclectic Witches Book of Shadows. And
I have
I
one
love
too.
this book. This was my first hardcover, and it's so beautiful. It has, look at the illustrations. Mickey Mueller did the illustrations and she did the front cover. Amazing job. And again, this is a sort of a basic, there's a chapter on herbs, and then there's a chapter. It's as if you had your own book of shadows that you'd written, except I did it for you. So it's easier. And then there were all of these spaces where you could add what you've done on your own. And the problem turned out to be the book was so beautiful, nobody wanted to write in it. People kept saying to me, no, it's too pretty to write in. So I'm coming out with a companion book that not only has additional information, more herbs and more stones and coloring pages and other fun things like that, but it'll be a paperback and hopefully people will really feel comfortable adding their own things that they've learned. Yeah, it was one of those things. It just never occurred to me that the book would be too beautiful. Go figure.
I haven't written in it. You're one of the I don't recommend a lot when somebody's new and getting into the craft to do. You are one of the handful of authors I do recommend because of that book and
Thank you.
because of now this one is but I didn't write in that book either. I have
Yeah,
my
no,
own way of doing
I
things, but
didn't write in
I
it either. I just so it is true. It is true, pretty. And you can certainly use the companion book without the first one. You don't have, it's still useful. It still will work on its own. But if you already have the Eclectic Witches Book of Shadows, then the companion book is just going to take you one step further. And did I mention there's coloring pages? How fun is that? So
how
yeah, and
fun.
that's coming out from Llewellyn and from Crosscrow Books. They are doing a re-release of one of my earlier books, Witchcraft on a Shoestring, which has been out of print for a little while and which people still like. And luckily, this publisher, which is fairly new to the witchcraft scene, they are making a real effort to get some of these old classic books back out there so the people who missed them 10 years ago or whatever it was can get them now. So yeah, that is going to be a lot of fun too. It'll witchcraft on a shoestring is self-explanatory. It's how to practice witchcraft without having to spend a whole lot of money. You don't need the fancy esoteric herbs. You don't need to like have every single candle color. So I have all sorts of crafts in there and there's recipes because who doesn't like mixing magic with food?
That is awesome. You are obviously prolific in your work and your craft and in what you do. How did you get on your path? You don't you even live in an old
I
farmhouse or
do live in
something?
an old, yeah, it's
You
130. Actually, at this point, it's probably about 140 years old. Bits of it are older than other bits. It's been it's an old house that was added onto here and there. It's on a stone foundation. You go into the basement, you're like, we can see where they started. So, yeah, I live in an old farmhouse, but my witchcraft journey started before I moved out here when I was living in a crappy little apartment in town. And it was one of those things where a friend of mine kept inviting me to come, you know, meet this group she hung out with and do things. And I kept going, I don't know. First of all, I don't like people. I like people. I just don't like groups of people I don't know. Now, of course, I've been to a million conventions and I'm like, groups of people I don't know, whatever. But back then, it was like, this seemed a little odd. And she finally, on one Samhain, persuaded me to come for a feast and a ritual at her apartment. And she said, oh, there's hardly anybody going to be there. Hardly anybody was like 35 people. And they're all hugging me and saying things like, Merry meet. And I'm like, what the heck is happening here? And I was born Jewish. I'm still Jewish. Once you're born Jewish, you're always Jewish. But the religion didn't do it for me. I'm very proud of my heritage, but religiously, it was like stern father figure, God, no, thank you, dude. And I hung out with the Unitarians for a while. They were very nice, but missing something. Studied Buddhism for a while. And after the feast, we went out into the park near her house and cast the circle. And I did the thing I'd been doing for years, which is I just reached out into the universe. Only this time, somebody reached back. And there they were. It was God and Goddess. And basically they said, took you long enough. Which, yeah, it was very loving and very embracing, but they were also like, really? What? And after that day, I had found my home, and it took me, I guess I practiced with her group for about 5 or 6 years, learned a lot of things, finally decided it was time to go out on my own, started my own group, Blue Moon Circle, which in March is celebrating our 20-year anniversary as a group, which is anybody who's been
Wow.
around witchcraft for any period of time, 20 years is a really long time for a coven to stay together. We've had some people come and some people go. The originating members all still here. So that's pretty amazing. And we practiced together for a year. And I suddenly thought, I really wish that I had a book for that first year that told me, here's a bunch of rituals for full moons and new moons and the Sabbats, and gave me some ideas of what to do and what not to do. And I couldn't find it, so I wrote it. And that was 2005. The book came out in 2007. That's Circle Covenant Grove. And I've been doing my thing ever since.
It's That's beautiful. Yeah, I know. It does find you sometimes kicking and swinging,
What was
sometimes
so funny to
slipping
me
in.
is after this experience, I was talking to another friend of mine who was a witch and a hypnotherapist, very cool. And I said to her, guess what? I'm a witch. And she said, yeah, I know. I've known for ages. And I said, why didn't you tell me? And she said, you weren't ready yet. When you're ready, you figure it out for yourself. You show up at the rituals, you find the books, whatever. So one of the things that I tell people is if they've got this little inner voice saying, maybe it's worth exploring. Pick up a book like this one or talk to some people if you happen to be fortunate enough to know some witchy people, or watch The Witching Hour, or all of the
Yeah.
above, and just
It's
see how it feels. Some people know right away, and some people have to spend some time sort of sitting with it and exploring it to decide if that really is the right thing for them.
the right path. Yeah, I do agree. But as we know, we could see, witchcraft is very popular now. It is, I think, the fastest growing
In North
religion in
America,
America.
Canada as well.
And wow, the whole of North, that is beautiful. And again, I'm so glad because it is a belief system where you take
Oh,
responsibility
absolutely. Yeah,
versus
you
12 Hail
can't say
Marys
the devil
or
made me do
no.
it. You basically you go, I messed up. Let me try to do better the next time.
Yeah, so that makes me so and an awareness. And because we are whatever kind of a witch we are, we do have an awareness of this, our elements
Oh,
of our
yeah.
planet to take care of it. I
Nature,
think
when people ask me for my definition, and of course, you put 100 witches in a room, you're going to get 101 definitions. I always tell people this is just how I view it, but I consider it to be a nature based spiritual path, usually involving a god and goddess. And yes, respect for self reliance, but also other people's right to make their own choices. And that we believe in magic, that we believe that there is this thing you can't necessarily pin down, it's real, and that you can use it to create positive change. And for me, witchcraft is all about that idea of creating positive change in yourself, in the world around you, for people who maybe ask you for help. But I also love the fact that it is so individual. There is no one set of rules or guidelines. There is no one way to be a witch. There's like as many ways to be a witch as there are witches. We don't practice exactly the same. We have a lot of things in common, but Yeah, people get to pick the path that feels right to them. And I love that.
That is one of my main selling points. Again, it's not because I said so, because I would have been Jewish on my dad's side and Protestant on my mom's side, but my grandfather was this famous atheist, so we didn't have gods were a dirty word, though I'd see and churches and temples and mosques, and I'd wanna go there, but we didn't use that word. It was not till I was 13. I wanted to go see some not Christian band or something at a church, and I was scared to ask if I could go to a church on a Friday night. My mom's, "You could do anything." So I became a seeker. I tried out that Christian thing, didn't work, tried out the Jewish roots, Buddhism, Tibet, and then when I went to my first, I think, Long Beach Women's Spirit Weekend ritual, I was like, "Oh, I've been talking to trees forever. I've been picking rosemary and stuffing it in my mom.
Yeah.
I know
And that's,
this. This is,
people say,
it's in
how
blood."
long have you been a witch? And I always say, I've been a witch my whole life. I just didn't find out there was a name for it until I was in my late 30s. Yes, I've always wanted to garden, and cooking felt very magical to me. I love feeding people because it does feel like you're putting a piece of yourself into it. And yes, I've had some interesting experiences that were not the norm, so to speak. You wouldn't know anything about what I'm talking about. Eh, Not at
Nah.
all. And finding out that was not weird, it was just who I was, a wonderful thing. And then, of course, there's the cat.
And then cats, yes. We are both I'm cat and I don't have it. How many cats do you have, Deborah?
5. Yeah. 5, I have
Wow.
5. I meant to have 3. I lost my last batch except one and said, "Okay, I'll just get 2 more. It'll be nice and reasonable." And then one of them came with a sibling he was attached to, so I'm like, "Okay." So I have 4 cats, and then I got a 5th cat, lost the first one, got down to 4, went, "4 is reasonable." And then I stumbled across this little black kitty who was only 4 years old and had been at the shelter for 3 years because she was terrified. There was nothing wrong with her. They always have so many black cats at the shelter. And if you have 20 cats and they're all adorable, and 19 of them are going to come up to you and say hello, and the other one sits at the back of the cage like this. Yes, I'm talking about you, Lilibet. She was, and she was never going to be adopted. You could just tell. And I went back and forth and tried to walk away, but my cat Magic, I swear, I felt her little paw between my shoulder blades do this. She insisted, you know, even being dead for a few years, she still occasionally shows up and makes herself known. And she made it very clear that she wanted me to take in this little black cat. She was a black cat as well. And sometimes you just can't argue. So, yeah, we had a year-long transition because she was so scared. But she just celebrated her 2-year adoption back in January, and she's settled in, and she's clearly very happy to be out of the cage at the shelter. And the shelter people, of course, were really happy to have me take her because they knew that I had the experience and the patience to let her blossom on her own terms. And yes, so 5 seems to be my number. 5 was what I had before. And no matter how often I say it's going to be less than 5, it's 5.
And my
And
God, you're the one
that's
who wrote
right.
the book.
You'd think I could take them as a tax write off because they wrote a book about them, but no, the IRS will not allow it.
Yeah,
I've asked. Yeah. Mean people.
now you had mentioned earlier one of your familiars.
Oh
Was that a
yes,
cat
Magic.
familiar that helped you? So how many of your, if any of your 5 cats
None.
now
Magic in
is any of
all
them
the
up
years
for
I've been practicing. Now, mind you, I had this group of 5 cats, and now I'm on my next group of 5 cats. She's the only cat that I would say was truly a familiar. First of all, she supervised everything I did. She supervised when I ate. She supervised when I wrote. She slept right next to my head. So when she died, I was like, I don't know how to eat. I don't know how to sleep. I don't know how to write. How do I do this without this little black face looking at me? But yeah, when my group would practice inside, obviously we like to be outside when we can, but I live in upstate New York. Half the year it's winter. the other half of the year it's raining or mosquitoes. When we had to be inside, I had a round table that I set up as an altar, and we would get everything set up. She would come into the room. She would walk always clockwise around the table, greet everyone, and then she would either sit underneath the altar or behind me on the couch and supervise the ritual. And then when we were done, she would jump off and circle everybody again and walk out of the room. And we'd go, I guess the ritual's over. Let's go feast. Yeah, there she
Wow,
was
that
a
you
truly special cat. All my cats are special, but we had a connection that was just amazing. And yes, it was a huge loss. In fact, if you look at some of my earlier books, some of them have like notes from Magick or wisdom from Magick, the cat, because she did manage to get her little paws into everything.
So, what do you have coming up? It's the end of February now. Anything how can
Oh,
people find you? How can people
well,
find your
that's
books?
easy.
Anywhere you're
My
appearing? Which
website has links
well, no,
to
that
like everything. And it is deborahblakeauthor.com. No imagination whatsoever. And as long as they know how to spell Deborah the long biblical way, Deborah, they can find me. In fact, if you Google me, you'll find links to my everything. But my website has all of those links. It also has all the books so that if people are curious about previous books, they can read about it. There's links to go find it. You can find most of my stuff directly from Llewellyn. I have a tarot deck. And one of the things that I say to people, because unfortunately the tarot deck is pirated a lot. It's makes me insane. But people are always writing to me and saying, "Oh, I bought your tarot deck and it didn't come with the book. Can you send me the book?" They told me to do this download and it doesn't work. And I'm like, yeah, that's because it's fake. So if somebody is interested in my decks, I suggest they go straight to Llewellyn and do not try and buy it anywhere else. Otherwise, you can find my books anywhere online. You can also go to your local indie bookstore if you are lucky enough to have one, and they will special order for you. If you are lucky enough to have a new age or pagan store, if they don't happen to have it in stock, and many of them do, they will special order for you. Support your local books. Yeah, if you want your local stores to survive, support them. You can also ask your library. As soon as I get a new book, the first thing I do is I walk down to my library, drive to my library, and then walk inside and hand them a copy to put on their shelves. But if a library does not have the book, they will very often order it. If I realize that not everybody can afford to buy every single book that they want to read, and that's fine. Yeah,
right,
go to your library.
right.
Libraries rock. And I am on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I am on whatever we're calling it now, Twitter. Twitter this week, I don't know. I'm starting to do a few things on TikTok. I am slightly technologically impaired, so I'm only just beginning to figure out how to use that. And I have a Patreon and I have an Etsy page where you can buy signed copies of my book if you like it. You can go to my Etsy store and I have a few little magical kits and some of the jewelry. I used to make gemstone jewelry for many years, like what I'm wearing. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm all the links to all of those places are on my website.
So you guys check her out. You will love her like I do. If you like cat book, there's a new one out, a new one, Witchcraft on a Shoestring, is coming out. But really, whether seasoned witch and been doing a long time, I these are my favorite kind of it just oh yeah. Ooh, cooking with magic. It's just this is great. So like her, follow her on social media. Go get a cat.
Get to their small.
I'm so they're small. Though my one is mean enough for all of them. I'm sorry, I'm still blown away that people they copy your tarot deck. I have fakes all the
Oh,
time. I'm sure you do that.
people,
Fake
yes,
keys.
people are basically pretending to be you. And then if I had a nickel for every stupid, oh, my darling, I feel the need to tell you about the things. And I'm like, I know that's not the real
Yeah,
person because that's not how that person talks. It is
right.
appalling the number of people who are out there stealing basically from witches and also trying to basically scam all of the people who trust us because they know they trust us. And all I can think is, you maybe haven't thought this through. You're picking on witches. Do you really think this is a good idea?
Exactly.
Yes, you might make some money in the beginning, but oh, I'm so sorry about that terrible rash you suddenly developed for no obvious reason. Or that you get a paper cut every time you pick
Well,
up a book. I don't know. I personally
exactly.
do not hex. That's a choice. Yeah, people do. But I do believe in karma. I absolutely believe in karma. But in the meanwhile, yes, it is so annoying. And then we have to waste all the time that we could be doing providing services for people, instead chasing down these fakes and trying to get rid of them. It is so frustrating.
I don't curse or hex either because, again,
Right.
you have to live in that world. We create the world we live. So it doesn't mean I could. The other day, there was somebody so blatant and contacting all my people, and somebody had said, I gave you $650. I'm like, you
Right.
didn't give me $650. You gave mother's
Yeah.
basement in his tidy
Yeah.
whitey $650. And so I just said, and usually they block you, but this person hadn't blocked me. And it's, I'm get that off my page. And I think I might have
Yeah.
threatened them with a curse because it doesn't mean I have to do it. They're
Exactly.
oh,
But yeah, what people don't understand is that
oh,
when they buy these knockoff decks, and a lot of them don't realize they're doing it, they're not necessarily doing it. But if you
yeah,
see
trying
a
to work.
$32 deck on sale someplace for $8, use your common sense. It's not real, and you're not going to get what it is you want. And no, I cannot send you the book because it comes as a set. Even I don't have the book by itself. But what it means is that I don't get paid. The illustrator doesn't get paid. The publisher doesn't get paid. And it makes it hard for all of us to stay in business, to keep doing this thing that we love so much, because they're literally stealing money that would make it possible for us to do it the next time. So people, use some common sense. If you every once in a while, Llewellyn will have a sale and you can get something for 30% off, but that will be on the Llewellyn site, and then you'll know it's legitimate.
Exactly. So, yeah, otherwise, you're giving your good hard earned money to
Exactly.
thieves.
Pirates, and not the fun ones who say, "R."
Pirate. Anyway, not to end on that note, do you have any last words of wisdom before we sign off for this new
I think we
2024? Or
all need to reach for the positive. Things are so stressful right now and a little bit dark and frightening. And one of the great things about witchcraft is that it can empower us. So use that to empower yourself, to bring a little bit more light into your life. Remember to share that light with other people and bring a little bit more light into other people's lives. It doesn't even have to be magic. Love is magic. And being supportive of other people is magic. So just be nice, be kind, don't forget to laugh, and try and be the light and not the darkness.
beautiful words of wisdom. Thank you, beautiful Deborah Blake. Thank you for bringing that magic, your magic, to the
Thank you
witching
for
hour.
having me.